There were 5 deaths tied to Rikers Island within a 6-week period by April 2025. Rikers, the best-known jail in New York City, with the ability to house approximately 9,800 inmates. It is the site of one of the largest correctional and mental institutions in the world. Rikers, on average, see a daily population of 10,000 inmates. The majority, around 85%, are detainees of pretrial defendants. Rikers, a 413-acre prison island located in the East River in the Bronx, contains New York City's largest jail. Rikers Island includes 7 active facilities that houses men and women from ages 18 and above. Some of these units house detainees with persisting acute medical issues and mental health problems. Rikers maintains secure facilities in city hospitals, including Elmhurst Hospital Prison Ward, located in Queens, New York, is for female detainees. Bellevue Hospital Prison Ward, located in New York City, treats mentally ill inmates from Rikers Island who are too sick, violent, delusional, or suicidal for the jail to handle. In 2022, there were a staggering 19 deaths at Rikers Island, all loss of life being tragic. The 2022 death of Elijah Muhammad at Rikers stands out. 31-year-old Elijah Muhammad, a native of Kentucky and father of 4, arrived on Rikers June 9, 2022. He was charged with assault in the first degree and housed in cell 13. Elijah died on Rikers from a fentanyl overdose July 10, 2022, just 1 month later. Elijah's overdose isn't the first on Rikers, but one of the most egregious in Negligence. Elijah admitted to using heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines, amphetamine, cannabis, and alcohol. His medical records revealed a detailed, extensive history of hospital stays for mental health and substance abuse. He was diagnosed with a drug dependency and an antisocial personality disorder. He was housed in general population with mental health follow-up. Elijah was seen disoriented at 2:56 p.m. on July 10, 2022, in the GRVC section of Rikers. Correctional Officer Ezra Lewis was on duty during this time. Video evidence shows a perplexed, bewildered Elijah marching toward a set of stairs and a fellow inmate going after him. Elijah was completely incoherent and struggling to stand at one point. The fellow inmate opens Elijah Muhammad's cell door and tries to guide him in. Elijah continues in a daze and cannot follow the inmate's directions. Afterwards, another fellow inmate would try to assist Elijah into his cell, and that attempt would fail as well. The timeline that follows is key to the development in Elijah Muhammad's death. At 2:59, C.O. Lewis walked over to the common table to join other inmates. They all spoke to each other, looking in Elijah's direction, laughing. Elijah fell against the wall, eventually sliding down into a seating position. C.O. Ezra Lewis can be seen making his way to Elijah's cell. At 3 p.m., C.O. Lewis opened and held Elijah's cell door while 2 inmates picked him up and carried him inside. Between 3:04 p.m. until 4:07 p.m., there would be several inmates going in and out of Elijah's cell. C.O. Lewis would also look inside the cell but never enter. At 4:07 p.m., there would be 4 inmates looking inside Elijah's cell, opting to stand outside of it, engaging in conversation. At approximately 4:11 p.m., a fight ensues in front of Elijah's cell. The fight moves from in front of Elijah's cell to the front of the housing unit. C.O. Lewis would not intervene in the fight. Resuming at 4:14 p.m., inmates began to look and enter Elijah's cell again. C.O. Lewis would look inside Elijah's cell, but still not enter. He, however, will hold the cell door open for the other inmates to go inside. At 4:23 p.m. and 4:42 p.m., C.O. Lewis will conduct housing unit tours, omitting Elijah Muhammad's cell. At 4:53 p.m., C.O. Lewis would open Elijah's cell, look inside, and begin to walk away. He was approached by an inmate who entered Elijah's cell. C.O. Lewis held the door open. Two additional inmates entered Elijah Muhammad's cell. C.O. Lewis continued to hold the door while watching the activity happening inside. Two of the people walked out of the cell while one remained. One more inmate entered Elijah's cell and quickly walked out. At 5:13 p.m., C.O. Lewis looked inside Elijah's cell through the cell door window, opening the door and standing at the threshold. He held the door open with his body for several seconds looking inside. An inmate approached C.O. Lewis, looked inside the cell window, and opened the door. Both looked inside the cell, and shortly after, C.O. Lewis walked away. The other inmate entered the cell. Then, an additional inmate entered the cell. After a few moments, the two remaining inmates left Elijah's cell. This was a turning point, revealing the last recorded time C.O. Lewis checked on Elijah until 9:43 p.m., a full 4.5 hours later. A host of movements occurred on the unit, including an SRT exacting a lockdown and taking of an inmate. Between 5:30 p.m. and 9:43 p.m., a few inmates checked on Elijah. Finally, at 9:43 p.m., due to the alert of an inmate, C.O. Lewis checked Elijah's cell, finding him unresponsive. C.O. Lewis then activated his body-worn camera. Mr. Muhammad is shown on his bed, lying on his side facing the wall. C.O. Lewis turned Elijah over on his back where foam was coming from his nose. C.O. Lewis then summoned the help of C.O. LaRock, who was taking over the unit B5 from C.O. Lewis. When she arrived at Elijah's cell, she stated he had no pulse, no sign of life, and his skin was cold to the touch. They carried Elijah out of his cell, and C.O. Lewis began CPR. At 9:50 p.m., Captain Peters arrived, and Narcan was administered. At 9:52 p.m., medical staff worked to aid Elijah. Questions posed to C.O. Lewis were in an effort to find out Elijah's condition when he was last seen. C.O. Lewis assured medical staff that he checked on Elijah before 9 p.m. and he was breathing. The statement didn't align with video evidence. Some inmates blamed COs for not doing unit checks as often as they should. Elijah Muhammad used methadone and his prescription was discontinued. He missed his July 7, 2022 appointment to evaluate his meds due to the DOC not producing him. On July 8, 2022, Elijah was treated by medical staff during a sick call. He complained about shortness of breath, fever, chills, and headaches, and requested to be put back on the methadone. A referral was made to KEEP, Key Extended Itchery Program, a Rikers opiate treatment program. There is no record in his file indicating he started treatment. Elijah Muhammad died July 10, 2022, just 2 days later. The autopsy was conducted by medical examiner Dr. Michael Greenberg of New York City, Office of Chief Medical Examiner. Dr. Greenberg reports the cause of death as acute fentanyl intoxication, ruled as accident substance abuse. In an interview with SOI, Dr. Greenberg stated Elijah Muhammad was a healthy male with no underlying contribution health factors. The doctor stated the concentration of fentanyl in his blood, 45 milliliters, was extremely high and fatal on its own. Elijah also had a dosage of methadone in his blood, 13 milliliters. But that combination of drugs was not what caused his death. Dr. Greenberg's opinion stated that based on his body temperature and rigor, Elijah Muhammad's time of death was likely between 7 and 9 p.m. Dr. Greenberg states that the way the body takes in a drug helps to determine the effects. He explained the body needs time to absorb the fentanyl into the bloodstream. The numbers of hours between being placed in the cell and when he was found wasn't enough to be fatal. Dr. Greenberg believes a second dose was taken while he was in his cell between 3 p.m. and 9:43 p.m. Dr. Greenberg stated that had the Narcan been administered earlier, when first observed in a disorientated state, it's likely that he could have survived. However, it was not guaranteed. Dr. Greenberg stated that fentanyl, among methadone and diphenhydramine, case sedation, Elijah had all those drugs in his system. Ezra Lewis was a probationary correction officer on July 10, 2022. He was in the DOC Academy from December 16, 2001 through June 6, 2022 and assigned to GRVC on June 7, 2022. On July 11, 2022, GRVC Warden Jean H. Renee requested the Deputy Commissioner of Human Resources state a conduct personnel determination review, recommending termination. This request was completed, and on July 11, 2022, Correction Officer Ezra Lewis was terminated by the DOC. The prosecution of Ezra Lewis was on the table. New York law imposes a duty on COs to keep all prisoners safe. He was grossly negligent in not following protocol of providing aid to an inmate when distress is noticeable. Ezra Lewis failed to act. According to the medical examiner earlier, medical attention could have possibly saved Elijah Muhammad's life. However, OSI concludes that a prosecutor would not be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Elijah's death would have been prevented. For this reason, Ezra Lewis was not prosecuted. Elijah Muhammad's family formed a protest and planned to file a $25 million wrongful death lawsuit against the city of New York. Unfortunately, Elijah Muhammad's case is one of too many. Rikers has a severe drug flow throughout the complex. There are documented cases of Rikers Island correction officers' involvement in smuggling drugs into the facilities. Creative ways to sneak drugs in have been vacuum-sealed marijuana in lunch boxes, Ciroc coconut-flavored vodka in Poland Spring water bottles, and a packet of drugs inside a McDonald's salad. During the pandemic, an investigator stated seizures of fentanyl in the mail rose sharply. Illegal narcotics inside Rikers have contributed to overdoses, some leading to deaths. Disclaimer: companies Poland Springs and McDonald's have never been connected to smuggling drugs into Rikers Island and any other facility. Those are just items that the individuals chose to use to camouflage the drugs. Once again, McDonald's and Poland Springs have no connection to smuggling drugs into Rikers Island. There were 4 drug-related deaths in 2021. and 6 in 2022. Marion Sharon, a retired NYPD detective and former Correction Department's Deputy Director of Investigation, believes the culture of the Correction Department makes it hard to combat the problem. 37-year-old Ghislaine Barrentos is a former Rikers Island correctional officer. She was arrested by federal authorities between February 2024 and April 2024. Barrentos conspired with others to smuggle drugs into Rikers Island, including cocaine, smokable synthetic cannabis, known as K2, and food to inmates housed in the Robert N. Deveron complex. She obtained thousands of dollars in bribe money. Ghislaine Barrentos was sentenced to 6 months in prison following 6 months of house arrest. She was ordered to turn over $11,868. Former NYC Department of Correction officer 37-year-old Kendall Felix accepted a bribe of $3,000 to bring contraband inside Rikers Island jail. Felix allegedly provided 200 cigarettes and a cell phone for the payoff. The items brought in were worth $15,000 inside the jail. An outside person paid the bribe to him. Felix is facing 2 second-degree counts of promoting prison contraband and misconduct. He had a December 4th, 2024 date, which was met. And at this time, there's no additional information in his case, but I will update as soon as I know. Last reflections. Elijah should never have been in general population. Had he received help earlier, Elijah may be alive today. C.O. Lewis failed his duty to protect inmates. A host of traffic by inmates leaned towards activity taking place inside Elijah's cell that has yet to be revealed. In Dr. Greenberg's professional opinion, another dose of fentanyl had been ingested and was the cause of his death. Elijah died between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Had he received a visit from Lewis, the outcome could have been very different. I'll return with part 2 of my report on Rikers Island. Please join me here at S7N, the Investigative Report. I'm Sanique. Please like and subscribe so you won't miss any upcoming uploads. Take care of yourself and each other.